Hi, welcome to another edition of the Weekly Wrap, where we talk about news nuggets mined from the weekly newspapers. Hi, I'm Cal Anderson, an activist and your host. And I have two other activists here today. In fact, I've shared projects with them because we're all at one time or other have shared being members of the Lynn Historical Commission. I want to welcome to the show Wendy Joseph.
Thank you, Calvin.
And Julia Greene.
Thanks, Calvin.
Now, Wendy was on a few weeks ago talking about her annual event at High Rock Tower for the Frederick Douglass reading every year. And Julia is a scholar on Frederick Douglass, and I've heard her give speeches before about the life and times of Frederick Douglass. So we're going to talk about their fusion of events coming up. And it's all kicking off pretty soon. So welcome to the show. Julia, why don't you tell us about what's going on next year?
Yeah, well, next year is the 200th birthday of Frederick Douglass. And Douglass lived in Lynn, and a lot of people don't know that he lived in Lynn for 4 years. And I like to say that Frederick Douglass became Frederick Douglass in Lynn. And so there have been people in the community who have done different events around Frederick Douglass. And so we decided to convene a group and just grow it too. And so an organizing committee really for 2018 to celebrate Douglass in Lynn. So Wendy's a part of it, I'm a part of it, and now about 15 other people are working on this to figure out different events and maybe even some long-term markers in the community where we'll really start celebrating Douglass and Lynn like we should do. So that's what we're doing right now. We're a committee we're forming, so stay tuned for 2018 because we're going to have a lot happening.
Wendy, just who was Frederick Douglass and why is he important to Lynn? What's the connection?
Well, Frederick Douglass was an escaped slave who became a national figure and lived in Lynn and wrote his first autobiography while he was living in Lynn. And the July 3rd up at High Rock Tower is important with Frederick Douglass because he was friends of the Hutchinsons, the Hutchinson family singers, who he met, who he hung out with, who he went on tour with. And the opening of what we're going to be doing is going to be at the MLK breakfast that the Community Minority Cultural Center puts on every year.
That's coming up in January.
Yeah. Comes up every year. It will be January 15th at the Porthole Pub.
Okay.
So maybe just to backtrack a little bit in terms of why was Douglass in Lynn and why is Douglass important to Lynn? Well, way back in the 1830s, there was a big, strong anti-slavery movement in Lynn. And really all of the powerhouses of the anti-slavery movement came out of Lynn. So people like even William Lloyd Garrison came to Lynn when he was 7 years old and learned to make a shoe in a Quaker shoe making shop. The owner was a guy by the name of Gamaliel Oliver. And what they did was sat around and they would read newspapers. They'd have a reader. And so Garrison, at the age of 7 years old, was listening to all this anti-slavery talk. And so when he came of age and started getting involved, he really became an activist. He came back to Boston. He started what was called the Liberator newspaper, and he connected with the people in Lynn. So we were one of the first places in the country to have the Anti-Slavery Society. And then all kinds of big names that ran the anti-slavery movement nationally were right out of Lynn, too. People like James N. Buffum, Abby Kelly Foster. And if you're a historian of American history, you'll know these names. And others, small and large, maybe not known on the national scale. So when they discovered Douglass in Nantucket in 1841, they said, where can we bring Frederick Douglass to live and so that he can get on the train and give lectures all over the country? And they decided he'd be safe in Lynn. So he came to Lynn, and that's why he lived here. He was on the train a lot, his family was here the whole time. He was coming and going. So that's why Frederick Douglass was here. And there's much more big information about what he did, some and what he did in Lynn. But he was just an intellectual giant and a real activist, and really had a big part in ending slavery in this country.
That's wonderful. And folks might not be aware that the newly refurbished bandstand on our Commons is named the Frederick Douglass Bandstand for this very reason.
Yeah.
So we'll be hearing more about these events coming up. I'm sure we'll be highlighting them on LCTV. And there's a Facebook page?
There will be a Facebook page that will be up by the time that we're going to be ready to announce a number of events at the MLK breakfast. Everything from Tom Dalton, who used to be a reporter for the Item. He's writing a new book on Frederick Douglass, everything to a gospel music piece, public readings of the narrative. It goes on, and those will be updated on the Facebook page.
Keep an eye on the Facebook page and mark the dates as save-a-dates on the calendar. This is a wonderful event in our city. I picked a few tidbits from the past week to talk about too that might be of interest. One of them is welcome Tom McGee as our new mayor. We just want to welcome him and thank Judy Kennedy for her 8 years of service as well. We'll be hearing more about that. Now, in the look section last week, did you notice Spencer Haysack, my new favorite photographer there, has action shots of people doing skateboarding in the underground garage. And there was a little mention in the cut line here that because we don't have a decent skateboard park in the area. Well, there is one. It's right near Lynn Tech. But I remember specifically we spent $300,000 of public funds to build that one. Now this gets me thinking, since they're starting to re-examine the possibility for even putting housing on the top of the downtown garage, because there's 8 stories, and that was one of the things we were talking about a few weeks ago. Why not take this level underneath it and make it an indoor skateboard park, maybe a jogging track around workout stations? I'm just thinking out of the box, folks. That's the way I envision our downtown. Does that sound good to you?
It sounds like the T is going to have something to say about that.
Well,
those are people that we have to engage.
Yeah. Well, the thing is people like Joe Mulligan and some of the others coming to the city are starting to look at that parking garage as a diamond in the rough.
Absolutely.
Right.
Here's something that is interesting for all of us, because at one time or another I've shared commissioner status with both Wendy and Julia on the Lynn Historical Commission. And we're just about to kick off, hopefully, the renovation of our Rhodes Chapel. Now here's an article about the Swampscott renovations, and they received a big praise from the Secretary of State's office for doing their renovations last year. And Wendy, we went to the dedication last year, and you know, their whole effort was only $330,000. It's a little bit smaller than ours, but I'm thinking that's sort of the target money that we're going to be going for too as well. So we'll be hearing more about that. Just a reminder, we got about a minute left. We're in the rash of convenience store robberies. So they don't know if they're connected or not, but be aware. When you walk into these places, be aware, keep an eye on what's going on. And I just want to remind the convenience stores themselves, keep your windows uncluttered. There's city ordinances to that effect, but the same thing is it's for your safety and for your client's safety as well. Make sure that people going by can look in, law enforcement types, etc. So that's about it. I just want to remind everybody it's Veterans Day weekend. So if you know veterans, make sure you remember them this weekend. Anything else to talk about?
Just keep tuned. Thank you so much for having us on.
All right. And I'm going to let, I don't know, have you picked who's going to close the show yet?
I think we're going to do it in unison.
All right.
All right, yeah. So until next time,
In every day and every way.
keep loving Lynn.